What if the brightest colors you have ever seen were not created by science, but by hands now long vanished, working in the flicker of torchlight beneath stone ceilings shrouded in ritual and shadow? Imagine your first step into a ruin half buried by centuries, the air thick with incense and silt, when your eyes lift and you are caught breathless by a vault of colors so vivid it seems impossible. How did these pigments survive when memory did not? What ancient secrets were mixed into the blue of a midnight temple, or sealed within patterns painted centuries before chemistry had its name? The dust still clings to my boots as I move from tomb to sanctuary, across continents and ages, following trails that the world would rather forget. Sometimes what I find overhead is more than a ceiling. It is a galaxy of mirrored stars, a river of ochre carrying queens to the afterlife, a circle of serpents that guard a secret code. There are chambers where the pigment gleams with a promise, others where crimson and gold pulse with warnings we have yet to decipher. I have stood beneath spirals laid in pearl, scripts blazing in vermilion, and mandalas protected by serpents whose scales have outlasted dynasties. Where do these colors come from, and why did those who painted them believe they could last forever? Are they protection, prophecy, or a map to a history that refused to fade? Join me, traveler, as we descend beneath the dust of centuries, searching for answers that might change the way we see our own world forever. The dust still clung to my boots as dawn crawled along the Nile, brushing the age-worn stones with gentle fire. Beneath the archway of Abydos, where the wind dances in empty corridors and the scent of old incense weaves through the air, I stepped inside with more questions than answers. My lantern cast a citrus-tinged glow, catching a ceiling so impossibly vivid that for a moment it felt like stepping into a world paused between memory and dream. Above me, the sandstone columns rose towards a ceiling painted with gold that pulsed brighter than the sun. There was something in the hue, a richness that seemed almost liquid, as though the ancient plaster had been dipped in molten citrine. I reached up, fingers outstretched toward light frozen in time, and found myself wondering how artisans, whose names have dissolved into the silence of centuries, captured such brilliance with mere earth and pigment. The air carried a blend of incense and ochre, thick enough to taste, laced with anticipation. Each breath felt like an invitation to discover what was hidden beyond the veil of color. The ceiling sprawled overhead, alive with whorls and geometric patterns. Sunbeams trickled through cracks in the stone, igniting every curve into a burst of gold. The conservators who first examined these pigments believed the ceiling was a forgery, a modern scam. That kind of color, they said, could not have survived the passage of thousands of seasons, yet as they tested, scraped, and puzzled, the answer eluded them. No chemicals from today's world, no synthesized compounds, only the recipe of dust, ochre, and a devotion that refused to fade. Every swirl told a story, but none gave up their whole truth. I gazed upwards, tracing the shapes with my eyes, running hands along the ancient columns. In places, the paint was worn thin, as if the memory of old rituals had brushed it away. Elsewhere, the pigment sat heavy, locked in place by a mystery older than memory. Some corners above offered only shadow, while others exploded with color as vibrant as fresh honeycomb. The ceiling felt like an invitation to decode, to ask the right questions and then wait for answers suspended just out of reach. Standing there, I tried to imagine the hands that worked under torchlight, grinding minerals and mixing them with river water, patience and whispered prayers. Was it the composition of the plaster? A rare mineral found only in Abydos' heartland? Some believe the pigment's longevity came from the rituals themselves, ceremonies that imbued the paint with protection, locking in the color with each spoken word. Others say the location, the sacred geometry of the temple, channeled energy. As light shifted and the ceiling's colors pulsed, I caught glimpses of details lost to time. Firebirds, curling vines, shapes that danced at the edge of comprehension. Sometimes, when I squinted just right, I saw echoes of the faces who once gathered here, their laughter and sorrow lingering in the sparkling dust. It felt as if every pigment had a purpose, every pattern a story, but each layer only opened more questions. I lingered, letting silence settle, listening to the whisper of the wind through the columns and the distant call of water outside. The golden ceiling mocked simple answers, its beauty a riddle waiting to be solved. That morning in Abydos, I realized that history is not afraid to hide its magic in plain sight. Some mysteries want to be noticed, but few are ever meant to be fully understood. And as my lantern faded, casting the colors into shadow, I knew this ceiling was only the beginning. There are places where pigment bursts onto stone, challenging our ideas of what survives and what is lost. The next discovery waits beyond these sacred walls, where blue light erupts in the temple of Hathor, and the boundaries of art and alchemy blur once again. The sun had barely risen when I found myself standing at the entrance of the Temple of Hathor. Morning mist clung to the hieroglyphs, softening every sharp edge, painting the world in hues of dawn. Passing beyond the threshold, I felt the temperature drop. A cool hush descended, as if I had entered a sealed chamber of dreams. The ancient air tasted faintly of beeswax and soot. Footsteps echoed off hollow stone, their sound swallowed by secrets far older than the pharaohs. Gradually, my eyes adjusted to the gloom, and above me the ceiling unfurled. It was as though a midnight sky had drifted down and settled just overhead, captured in pigment that refused to fade. The blue here is unlike any blue I have seen. Not the blue of ordinary paint, but a living hue, depth piled on depth, rich and luminous. Figures and glyphs sailed across the swathes of color. Stars, goddesses, and sacred boats glided around the ceiling's compass, all bathed in that impossible azure. Art conservators have puzzled over it for generations. When they first peered up at those arching cranes and painted galaxies, the blue looked too vibrant, too unfazed by time. Surely, they thought, some modern hand had passed through, refreshing the color with a chemistry not known to the ancients. Analysis, however, revealed the truth. The pigment was old, older than any recipe still known, created by ancient artisans whose knowledge vanished long ago. Lapis lazuli, ground fine as dust, was only the first ingredient. Added to that, rare minerals, the heat of a kiln, the patience of years. These ceilings became the standard against which all other pigments were measured. Yet their true recipe remains a riddle sealed inside the stone. As I stood beneath that vault, I felt my senses stretch. The cool, mineral-heavy air pressed close. Every breath seemed to hold a drop of color, as if the walls were slowly dissolving into my memory. My lantern's faint glow set the painted stars shimmering, diffracting off surfaces so smooth they looked fresh cut. I thought of the artists who labored here, mixing their paints in the soft hush before sunrise, preparing for rituals that would last far beyond any single life. In quiet moments, it is easy to become lost in the symmetry and spirals, wondering about the worshippers who once gathered in the sanctuary. Did they see these blues as a ladder for the soul, a passage for prayers to climb into the heavens? Or did they believe the ceiling itself could draw energy from the stars above, infusing their rituals with celestial power? The pigment's secret now lies silent, too deep for words, woven into the very fabric of the temple. I moved quietly through the pillared hall, running my hand over the fluted stone. The stories overhead seemed to shift as I watched, revealing new constellations, new questions. Some marks were deliberate, signposts for the officiants who once traced the skies turning from below. Others were accidental, the result of centuries of candle smoke and curious visitors. Yet none dulled the blue's intensity. It lingers as stubborn as hope. With every step, I was reminded that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only experienced. The blue vault of Dendera is one such enigma. It is not just a color, but a sensation, a memory in pigment. My lantern flickered, drawing gold from shadow and casting long, slow shapes across the figures sailing in their painted boats. Somewhere in these pigments, the ancients placed a question that endures. Where does the sky end, and where does our search for answers begin? As I left the chamber, sunlight crept along the floor, teasing out flecks of blue that shimmered like water. Beyond these walls, more pigments wait in silence, reds that breathe with buried legends, vaults whose colors might just outlast the stones themselves. What stories might echo there, beneath hues that time forgot? The expedition continues, drawn ever onward by the promise of another riddle painted above a waiting threshold. The path to Chavin is a winding ribbon through the Peruvian highlands, flanked by jagged peaks and echoing with the calls of distant birds. Every stone underfoot whispers of ancient footsteps, and every breath carries the cold, iron-tinged scent of approaching altitude. As I climb, early clouds cling to the slopes, and the air grows quieter, as if the mountains themselves are drawing a curtain around something secret. At last, I reach the old temple entrance. Here, deep within the Andean shadow, the world narrows to a single dark passage. I duck inside, and the coolness closes over me, damp and reverent. Walls shrink in, rough-hewn and monumental, leading me beneath the earth. At first, the gloom seems absolute, swallowing the last trace of sunlight. But then, as my torch flickers, a sudden flush of crimson leaps from the vault overhead, painting the stone with a vibrancy that feels almost alive. I stand transfixed, looking up at curves and spirals of red, vivid as fresh-cut garnet. Long ago, these pigments must have been dazzling. Even now, after centuries of rain and tremor and silence, the color is so bold that early scholars claimed sorcery or forgery. Some suggested that what survived must have been the work of modern hands, because nothing that intense could have lasted this long in the belly of damp mountains. Yet science told a different story. The reds are genuine, crafted with a knowledge now lost to time. The air is thick with mineral breath, earthy and yet tinged with something sharper, the scent of secrets distilled by centuries. I let my fingers drift along the painted patterns, feeling the slight raised texture where brush once met stone. These vaults tell silent tales of priests with feathered headdresses, of smoke curling beneath the ceiling as music echoed among the columns. All around, the pigment clings with an odd resilience, as if devotion itself sealed these colors into the world. I step deeper and the light shifts, revealing new shades, vermilion here, ochre there, swirling together in a harmony that defies the monotony of age. Slowly, a story emerges, not in words, but in hues. Ritual gatherings, tales of blood and maze, sacrifices offered at the threshold between mortal and divine. It is not clear what ceremonies played out under these glowing archways, but the energy lingers, pressing in close. The very stones seem tuned to receive the weight of hope and fear that filled this space. I pause, listening to the shivering quiet. Each drip from the ceiling lands with a patient confidence. It is as if each drop nourishes the pigment, keeping it alive for just a while longer. I think of the artisans grinding minerals, their hands stained red, their prayers drifting up alongside the incense smoke. How did they find pigments so luminous? Some theories whisper of rare mountain clays. Others hint at alchemical processes forgotten by the world outside. As warmth from my torch seeps into the dry air, shadows slip across the curves of the ceiling. I realize I am not alone here. Echoes move at the edge of vision. The brush of cloth, the hush of footsteps, the memory of voices raised in chant. This vault with its crimson cloak is more than an artifact. It is a living bridge to a world balanced delicately between this life and whatever lies beyond. The colors were never meant just for the eye. They are calls across time, meant to stir the spirit. All around me, the mystery deepens. Impossible to pin down, too complex for a single answer. Crimson still pulses overhead, as vital as blood beneath the skin. If you listen closely, in the hush of Chavin's ancient corridors, you might hear what I do. Echoes that dare you to question what else endures. What other secret treasures might be hidden behind colors so bold they almost burn. And somewhere, further along this expedition, a new corridor waits, paved with glass, burning with an alchemy all its own, pulling the explorer deeper toward the next chapter of lost brilliance. Dawn crept across the Nile as I made my way to Edfu, the cool breeze carrying the scent of wet earth and ancient clay. The temple loomed above the river, pillars rising serenely out of shadow. With each step along the worn flagstones, the world outside faded, replaced by a hush that seemed to hold centuries within its breath. Ancient stone met my fingertips, rough and cool, and I found myself drawn deeper into the labyrinth of halls within. Soon, narrow passageways led to a chamber where sunlight burst through a rare skylight, scattering golden shafts across the floor. As I looked up, my breath caught. The ceiling glimmered in a dazzling array of colors, like jewels melting into a mosaic overhead. Emerald, ochre, azure, each pigment burned with a vibrancy that defied time. Small fragments of colored glass embedded in the plaster threw prismatic light, spinning rainbows onto carvings below. For a moment, it felt as if I stood inside an alchemist's vessel, surrounded by the very elements of transformation. The Conservators, when they first arrived here, could scarcely believe their eyes. They scratched away at the surface, convinced that the colors were the work of modern hands, a clever ruse staged to revive a fading past. They expected to find acrylic or synthetic paint, the fingerprint of restoration, yet what they discovered instead was older than any lab recipe, more sophisticated than expected, a compound without equal, a pigment made with methods still unclear to this day. The glass itself, fused into the ceiling centuries ago, carried traces of minerals found only in distant lands, suggesting a trade network broad enough to rival the legends of Egypt's Golden Age. Within this chamber, the air was thick with memory. The scent of heated sand hovered at the edge of perception, mingled with dust and the faint tang of minerals. I let my eyes wander across the patterns, tracing each swirl of color as sunlight revealed nuances missed in shadow. Some designs repeated, spirals curling around blossoms, geometric knots anchored beside guardian hawks. Others seemed placed just for this hour, only visible as the sun climbed and painted the ceiling anew. I wondered about the makers, the hands that crushed turquoise and ground fresh ochre, mixing each with river water and breath. Some believed the pigment's creation was a sacred act, a collaboration between priests and artists, blending ritual with chemistry in ways lost to us now. The glass was added not merely for beauty, but for meaning, amplifying the ceiling's radiance and binding celestial energy within the stones. Every fragment held a prayer, every color a purpose. Standing beneath this canopy of light, I felt a current of anticipation. It was not just the thrill of discovery, but the sense that something within these pigments was alive, waiting for a witness. The emerald greens whispered of rebirth, the deep blues of the river's eternal journey. Even the golds flickered with echoes of sun gods streaking across the sky. The ceiling was a living archive, storing more than just pigment. It held stories, promises, perhaps instructions for ceremonies. If I listened close enough, beyond the creak of ancient beams and distant calls of birds, I could hear quiet echoes, voices murmuring the names of gods, hands steadying fragile glass, the steady rhythm of tools carving out eternity. The presence of colored glass in such abundance was a statement. It said, "We understood the power of beauty, and we believed in its protection." No textbook can explain the sensation of standing there, wrapped in colored light, history breathing beside me. My lantern's flicker joined the sunlight, deepening every hue, casting new patterns onto the mosaic ceiling. For the artisans, each day's changing light might have revealed yet another hidden message, another blessing poured into the stone. There are secrets here beyond pigment and glass, perhaps a formula still buried in the silt of the Nile, perhaps a tradition waiting to be rediscovered. As I turned from this dazzling vault, I carried with me unanswered questions. What ceremonies once filled these halls with song? What guardians watched as pigment was ground and light set free? The path beckoned deeper into the temple, into new chambers where colors pulse with an intensity even greater than glass, leading onward to Ajanta, where life explodes across stone and legends whispered just beneath the surface. Morning fog lingered along the riverbank as I began my climb, every footstep echoing through the forested ravine. The cliffs of Ajanta rise suddenly, a horseshoe carved from volcanic rock, cloaked in vines and birdsong. For a moment, the outside world faded. My pulse synced to the slow drip of water, to the calls of hidden macaques. I traced the winding path to a shadowed fissure in the stone, the entrance almost lost among wild branches and ancient moss. Sweat gathered on my brow as I ducked beneath an arched lintel, cool air pouring over my skin. The interior was thick with the scent of damp stone and oxidized oil, the fragrance of centuries compressed into silence. For a heartbeat, I stood unmoving, letting the darkness swallow me whole. And then, as my eyes adjusted, the ceiling exploded into color, a sudden burst of life that stole my breath. Figures leapt and danced along plastered vaults. Gods reclined in clouds of turquoise light. Dancers swept their arms, all suspended above me in scenes of myth and pilgrimage. The pigments here remain astonishingly bright, vivid greens, rich reds, deep indigos, pulsing with energy even as dawn struggled to filter through the cave mouth. Torchlight revealed more, a tapestry of animals, whirlpools of lotus, even tiny patterns in jewelry and silks that seemed woven only yesterday. I moved carefully, mindful of the centuries pressed into the floor beneath my feet. The colors felt alive, as if the ancient artists had poured movement and breath into every brushstroke. Science once doubted the authenticity of these hues, suspecting secret recasting or modern hands. Yet every analysis revealed a different truth. The colors were ground from local minerals, mixed with glue and lampblack, painted by candle and oil. The vibrance survived not just through chemistry, but through care, through the rituals of those who guarded these caves, sweeping dust, tending lamps, renewing prayer. If I listened, I could hear echoes pressed between spaces. Soft footsteps of Buddhist monks in saffron robes chanting their sutras as they circled the painted chambers. Festival processions winding past, golden bells ringing. The hundreds of years since had only deepened the sense of continuity, as if each visitor added a layer to the story, each whisper of awe a faint stroke of pigment on a never-finished masterpiece. In certain corners, pigment nearly glowed in the gloom, resisting the decay that claimed so much else. Why did these colors evade the fate of others? Some believe it was the formula: egg, wax, and honey. Simple, yet alchemized with intention. Others say the cave itself protected them, a sealed vault sheltering both art and secret. Above me, the figures moved with timeless grace, faces recalling lives and deaths, hopes and transformations. Every panel blurred the line between divine and human. The effect of standing below that vault was hypnotic. I felt the stone grow warm, the air pulse with each imagined drumbeat, the colors spinning tales that stretched from ancient India to my own restless thoughts. It was not just a painting, but a moving tapestry tied to river and rock, to times when art was both worship and memory. I let my gaze linger on a painted eye bright with intelligence as the ceiling opened a door to mysteries still waiting. What scenes did those artists leave unwritten? What dreams rest behind a panel yet to be uncovered? As I stepped further into the labyrinthine halls, torch in hand, I sensed that Ajanta was not the culmination, but another threshold. New mysteries waited just beyond these living walls, where night mingled with starlight and ceilings themselves could teach us how to see anew. Beyond the curve of painted stone, deeper shadows beckoned toward a place where mirrors of night and myth still glimmer. The next stage in this expedition, where every ceiling is a portal and every color another question yearning for dawn. Dusk began its slow descent as I slipped beneath the thick canopy that surrounded the ruins of Palenque. The air was cool, heavy with the perfume of crushed leaves and the distant sound of water traveling over ancient stones. Shadows lengthened, the world softening at the edges, as if the jungle itself was sheltering secrets too fragile for daylight. I followed the winding steps, their limestone worn smooth by centuries of barefoot pilgrims and highland rain. The temple loomed ahead, rising out of the green like a story half-remembered. Its walls had weathered storm and conquest, yet something within beckoned. A presence calling from the heart of collapsed corridors and moss-covered lintels. My footsteps grew lighter as I approached the entrance. Every sense sharpened, picking up the metallic tang of the coming night and the rattle of cicadas poised to sing darkness home. Inside, the hush was absolute, broken only by the faint sound of my breath. I lit a small torch, and its flame threw long shadows on the crumbling plaster. As I lifted my gaze, time seemed to pause. Embedded in the ceiling above me, countless flecks of mother-of-pearl and precisely cut mirrors shimmered in the torchlight, scattering starlight across the chamber. For one suspended moment, I felt as if I had stepped into the mind of the night sky itself, the ceiling transformed into a galaxy carried intact from some forgotten epoch. The light danced with every flicker, the mirrored fragments reflecting tiny bursts of gold and blue with each movement of the flame. The pigment, still glowing with subdued intensity, accented constellations mapped across the arch. Historians have long wrestled with the mystery of these ceilings. The pigment's gloss seemed too fresh, its luminescence too sharp for age. Suspicion fell on more recent hands, but chemical analysis revealed ingredients unique to Mayan chemistry: rare jungle resins, ground shell, and mineral infusions. No modern trickery, only ancient expertise held close as a priest's secret. Local whispers haunt these chambers, stories of starlit ceremonies where the high priests conjured the ancestors and sought the favor of gods. Some claim the ceilings were meant to glow brightest during sacred nights, when firelight would send constellations spinning across the walls, guiding visions deeper into the spirit realm. Others say that the mirrors anchored the temple to the sky, transforming the mundane into the cosmic with every dusk. There is a gentle scent of burned copal that lingers, resinous and sweet, as if old rituals never truly faded. I found myself tracing the lines between the mirrored stars, reaching for patterns the Maya once followed. Each fleck of shell or mineral was set with care, its position honoring both mathematical order and mystical significance. This was more than adornment. It was a record of belief, a map for souls journeying into eternity. Even now, I sensed that the ceiling pulsed with quiet intention, almost breathing, its luminescence stubbornly alive against the creeping dark. There is power in standing here alone, enveloped in a velvet silence pierced by ancient light. The boundaries between time blur, and the ceiling becomes not just an artifact, but a living participant. Every glimmer feels deliberate, a message meant to beckon the curious onward. Was this space meant to echo the night sky above, to draw heaven a little closer to earth? Or did it serve as a reminder that all of life's mysteries are written in both stone and shadow, waiting for those who will brave the dusk to see anew? As I extinguished my torch and the chamber swelled with darkness, faint light from above lingered, impossible to banish. The mirrored stars of Palenque had done their work, planting questions deeper than any answer, hinting at a lineage of color and stone that refuses to be extinguished. Beyond these walls, more secrets await, painted on the ceilings of tombs where ochre and lapis guide souls along rivers of night, and where the next vault shimmers with whispers of passage to other worlds. Dawn seeped across the desert, drawing pale gold over the harsh ridges and softening the sharpness of stone and sand. I walked alone toward the tombs scattered like secrets in the Valley of the Queens, each entryway a wound in the earth leading deep into dreams of ancient royalty. The air had a quiet loneliness, broken only by the distant hum of insects and the shiver of wind over dry gravel. I felt the weight of history pressing close as I slipped through a narrow shadow, the world dimming behind me. Within, the temperature dropped in an instant. A hush blanketed the chamber, thick with the scent of dust, faded incense, and the barest trace of desert flowers someone once placed near the painted wall. As my lantern flickered to life, light danced across the passage, pulling crimson and green from the gloom. Above, the ceiling swam into focus, a river of ochre, emerald, and lapis, swirling with figures adrift between constellations and lotus blossom boats. In some places, the colors remained shockingly bright. Their intensity startled me, as if the pigments had been brushed just days ago, not sheltered underground for more than 2,000 years. The ochre glowed with a warmth that defied its secrecy, each stroke shaped not just by artistic hand but by ritual, intention, and love. The emerald lines rippled with energy, patterns suggesting water and wind, cycles of the Nile, the never-ending current of time itself. Lapis figures floated on these currents, guardians of legend, vibrancy undimmed by centuries. It is easy to imagine the priests and artisans working by the light of oil lamps, mixing minerals with yolk, honey, and wine. Their hands moved with reverence along the cold rock, humming quiet prayers, each dab of color a protection, a plea, a step on a journey to the underworld. The stories say these ceilings were enchanted, pigments chosen for their symbolism as much as their endurance. When conservators from the modern world first entered, many believed the dazzling hue had to be a forgery, a recent intervention meant to trick the senses and restore awe. But lab tests told another story. The color was original, preserved by both chemistry and faith. I leaned back, letting the patterns fill my sight until the edges blurred. Rows of stars guided noble souls into the netherworld, while boats and birds ferried spirits beyond the reach of grief. It felt as though the tomb was not only a place for rest, but an animated threshold, a promise painted in layers for those who dared descend. Yet, shadows lingered in the crevices where time nibbled away at the plaster, leaving ghosts of what once was. As I moved through the tomb's narrow length, the ceiling seemed to ripple with memories. Sometimes, if I let the silence settle, I could almost hear a faint melody or see faces in the patterns overhead, watching, waiting, remembering. The colors felt protective, a shield for a journey both physical and spiritual. But were they meant to help the soul find peace, or simply to dazzle any intruder who stumbled across this hallowed place? Standing in that ochre river, I felt myself drifting, caught between what can be explained and what defies all reason. The tomb was a map, the ceiling a sky, a celestial river meant to carry its inhabitant beyond the sun's dying light. Perhaps, somewhere in the swirls of pigment, a secret formula still lies dormant, a trick yet to be unearthed, a magic waiting for the right hands and the right heart. As I prepared to leave, the lantern's glow flickered across one last corner, where the pigment had survived almost untouched. It seemed to pulse, as if alive, and so I turned again to the open passage, wondering if the commands of old magic linger elsewhere, high in sunlit sanctuaries where scarlet serpents guard the next chamber, daring travelers to question what is illusion and what, perhaps, is everlasting truth. The heat at midday in Hampi is almost a living thing. pressing against the skin and curling up from the old stone streets. Flags rustle without urgency, their colors faded but insistent, chiming as breezes tumble off the granite hills. The city once roared with empire, but as I wandered through dust and carved pillars, a hush pressed around me, punctuated by bursts of laughter from boys chasing shadows between sanctuaries. Hidden within winding alleys and half-toppled gates, I found the entrance to a quiet shrine. Its doorway stood open but unassuming, cranes nesting in the eaves above. Crossing the threshold, I paused to let my eyes adjust as the light shifted, filtering through intricately pierced screens. The hush inside was of a different sort, weighty, protective, ancient. Here the air grew cooler, saturated with the mingled scents of coconut oil, dried flowers, and old incense. Looking up, I found the reason I'd come. The ceiling lifted gracefully above the sanctum, revealing a circle of scarlet serpents coiled in perfect symmetry around a glowing mandala. Their scales shimmered, bright as lacquer, each line meticulously edged with gold leaf. Even after centuries of wind, smoke, and monsoon rains, the vibrancy stunned me. I moved closer, awe pulling me across the cool flagstones. Legends swirl about these ceilings. Some say the serpents are guardians, their endless forms a spell to bind chaos outside and invite harmony within. Others whisper that they are silent witnesses, storing every wish and fear brought here by generations of seekers. When the first scholars arrived, their skepticism was palpable. Pigment this bold, surviving in the damp and heat of Karnataka, could not possibly be original. Some even scratched at the scales, confident they'd find later repair or modern paint. Yet, as with so many sacred places, the pigment told another story. Tests revealed age-old ingredients, crushed cinnabar, gum arabic, resins drawn from the sal tree. With every step, fresh details emerged. Pearls nested in the serpent's eyes, echoing the moonstone set along the altar. Tiny floral bursts unfurled beneath each coil. Stories painted not just to delight the worshiper, but to teach. About rebirth, about time circling back on itself. If I lingered, letting my gaze spiral along with the ceiling, the whole chamber seemed to swirl, breath rising and falling in slow meditative rhythm. The heat outside had no power here. The serpents glimmered as if danced awake by the flicker of ghee lamps, patterns alive and watchful. I imagined artisans crouched atop shaky scaffolding, mixing pigment as clouds thickened outside. Each stroke, each scale, was an invocation, a vow of patience, a dialogue between human intent and unseen forces. Were the serpents placed here as protection or warning? Did their silent vigil promise safety or challenge the worthy to face their own cyclical shadows? A hush settled when the midday prayers began. Bells rang softly in a distant chamber. I watched sunlight trace glowing arcs over the mandala. Time slipped sideways, present and past mingling in the air, and I realized again that art can outlast both memory and record. The more I tried to decipher the story, the more its meaning retreated, not empty but open, a riddle to be solved through devotion or time. As my own presence faded into the hush, the serpents kept their circle unbroken, silent, but never still. I left that vault changed, the echo of their color imprinted on me, and so, with curiosity sharpened, I turned toward the next horizon, toward distant shores where purple and gold shimmer under the Cretan sun, and myths are reborn in the stones of Knossos, asking old questions in the language of radiant color. Evening fell in folds of honey-colored light as I climbed the stony path to Knossos, with a warm salt breeze rising from the distant Mediterranean. The ruins stretched before me like fragments from a dream, colonnades reaching skyward, corridors twisting out of sight, all suffused with the hush of anticipation. This was a palace built for legends, perched between land and sea, history and myth. Here the wind spoke in riddles, and every stone held a memory not quite explained. I passed through red pillars and entered a passageway where the world seemed to slow, colors blooming from shadow. Torchlight flickered over frescoes that wound along the wall, but the real marvel waited overhead. The ceiling unfolded in a whirl of Tyrian purple so deep it seemed to swallow the dimming daylight. Swirls of gold radiated outward with impossible brightness, as if hammered from ancient sunlight itself. For a moment, I stood rooted, feeling as though I had been drawn into one of the palace's own labyrinthine tales. The rumors about this place lingered, stories passed along by explorers and scholars alike. Many insisted the paint was too vivid, the purple too bold, the gold too pure. Surely, they said, these were modern illusions crafted to delight tourists, not relics of a Bronze Age world. But when the surface was tested, the mystery only grew. The pigments were authentic, recipes lost to the centuries, with Tyrian purple derived from tens of thousands of sea snails and gold leaf that shimmered under millennia of dust. No restoration, no clever trick, only the resilience of art bound to myth. Under that ceiling, it was easy to believe in the Minotaur and his retinue, to see Ariadne trace looping paths through morning mist. The colors seemed woven into the palace itself, shimmering in the heat of fading day. Myths bled from every brushstroke. Gold flashed like a bull's horns or a sunstruck shield, while purple shadows hinted at secrets barely glimpsed. The air was thick with the scent of old olive wood, and something sweeter still, a memory of dances that carried on through forgotten festivals. I found myself tracing contour after perfect line, marveling at the ambition of those who'd built such a place. Some say the pigments were reserved only for royal eyes, layered by craftsmen who knew their work was not just decoration, but magic. The palace was a theater, a stage for rituals both civic and sacred, its walls vibrating with anticipation for processions and sacred games. Perhaps it is no surprise, then, that the colors here defied the ordinary, meant to elevate, to transport, to hold the attention of gods as well as mortals. In the golden dusk, every inch of ornamentation seemed animated, the ceiling's purple flow echoing the swirl of the sea, the rhythm of dancers winding through labyrinthine halls below. Stories suggested the ceiling held hidden instructions in its patterns, codes for navigating the palace or taming its monsters. But even if no key remains today, the sense of magic is undeniable, a grandeur that outlasts empires. As the last rays of sunlight slipped away, I lingered in the stillness. The Tyrian glow shifted to amethyst, the gold burning gently in the fire-lit chamber. I wondered at the passage of time, at how myth and pigment survive together, each giving life to the other. The ceiling of Knossos is a testament, a reminder that art can transcend the ages, inviting all who find it into the heart of the story. Yet just as the palace's maze opens always onto new chambers, this was not an ending. Beyond the shadowed halls and gleaming paint, the Nile awaited, ferrying explorers to islands where malachite ceilings glow under dusk. There will always be another legend to chase, another color to decipher, in the mosaic of lost worlds still illuminated beneath the dust of centuries. The Nile is a slow-moving ribbon of light when dusk falls, casting long reflections that dance from bank to bank. Elephantine Island rests in a gentle curve where water laps at weathered stones, the place itself a quiet sentinel of Egypt's shifting tides. I crossed by boat beneath the sigh of palms, each stroke cutting through the golden path set aglow by the setting sun. The hush here is particular, the lull of water on stone and the distant call of ibises folding their wings for the night. Stepping ashore, I found my senses sharpening. The scent of the river was a mix of sweetness and mineral tang, touched by wind-worn herbs growing wild in the crevices. The old temple ruins were mostly silent now. Stones tumbled where walls once soared. But as twilight lengthened the shadows, I found a passage half lost to reeds and silt. Lantern in hand, I stepped through. Within, light dwindled quickly, replaced by the cool weight of shadow. But as I angled the lantern upwards, the ceiling caught fire in a spectrum of green. Malachite spread above me like water running over jade, laced here and there with streaks that sparkled golden. Fine dust trapped in plaster centuries before my own story began. The color burned with a vibrancy so pure that even my cautious heart skipped. For years, experts doubted its age. Pigment so clear and vivid must have been the labor of a recent hand. Yet every scientific test revealed only the patient chemistry of time. Native copper ore ground with care, sap and resins binding mineral with story. The atmosphere changed inside the chamber. The walls seemed to pulse saturated in this silent green, a hue that felt both cooling and electric. Gentle echoes moved when I did. My breathing, the faint shuffle of river silt beneath my shoes. For those who built this shrine, malachite was not mere decoration. It was a promise, a talisman against darkness meant to invoke prosperity and health as much as beauty. The green shimmered as if touched by water, echoing the Nile just beyond the broken lintel. I closed my eyes for a moment and imagined artisans grinding copper stone under the watchful gaze of priests. Each decision, the placement of hue, the way golden flecks traced patterns overhead, was a prayer, a gesture woven into the rising and falling chant of evening ceremonies. Some believe the formula for this enduring color is lost forever, stolen by the shifting river or carried off in the satchels of time. Others say it is hidden here among crumbling foundations, waiting for hands, unafraid to listen. As darkness grew deeper, the ceiling above became a tapestry lit by my modest lantern. Colors shifted as the flame wavered, sometimes revealing new gold along the edge of an old crack, other times deepening the green until it felt nearly black. The silence was profound, charged with memory and longing. This was not only a monument, but an offering, a connection between sky and river, between the hopes of builders and the reverence of wanderers to come. It is in places like this, chambers half forgotten and colors misunderstood, that history keeps its strongest magic. My own shadow stretched across the walls, growing thin and tall with every step. The malachite whispered of abundance, of renewal, of faith in cycles beyond our own. I realized that though the pigment endures, its fullest meaning may never be wholly ours to know. When I finally emerged, the river reflected only the palest moon, its surface calm but never still. I looked back a last time, the green now hidden, and wondered if Elephantine's secret shines for every pilgrim, or only when dusk is thick with the promise of renewal. Somewhere beyond, a new mystery waited, in the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, where color itself seems spun from the thin edge of dawn, drawing explorers onward in search of the next forgotten radiance. Morning in Lalibela breaks slow and gentle, the first rays of light pushing through gauzy clouds, brushing the rugged plateau with touches of pale amber. The land is carved deep, its rock-hewn churches sunk below sight, their passages winding through living stone. The air above is thin, almost crystalline, but within the labyrinth, dusk lingers in the corners, and every sound is shaped into reverence. I followed a narrow path, feeling the warmth of the earth beneath my feet and the chill of centuries in my chest. Each step drew me closer to an entrance, half hidden by wild rosemary and the soft hum of prayer. Inside, breath hung visible in cool silence, and the fragrance shifted, incense, faint traces of beeswax, the scent of polished basalt blending into something ancient but gentle. Through arched portals and winding corridors, I moved deeper into the heart of the church. My lantern flickered against walls etched with devotion. Shadow gave way to wonder as I looked up. There, the ceiling soared, painted in deep indigo and crimson, each curve pulsing as if stirred by midnight blue flame. In this twilight, colors seemed spun from air itself, woven into stone with a grace only time can grant. The pigment was not subtle. Indigo, rich as ocean depths, mingled with patches of red that blazed like embers parting the darkness. Generations of pilgrims traced their fingers along these bold lines, letting the color seep into their hopes. The technique was simple. Minerals scraped from the land, mixed with oils and prayer, yet the result was enduring magic. Scholars have tested the pigment, seeking a formula. Some say the color survives because the stone itself is alive, soaking in devotion with every hymn sung. Others look for meaning in the careful blend of natural and spiritual, a union that preserved both memory and art. The ceiling is decorated not just with color, but with vision. Angels moving in slow procession, sacred patterns swirling. Christian symbols and Ethiopian motifs intertwine above, drawing circles of protection and joy, suffering and renewal. In the indigo vault, centuries of belief shimmer in every brushstroke. The light dances, sometimes revealing new details. A halo here, a cross there, shifting with every angle of flame. I rested for a moment in the hush, listening to the echoes of uncounted prayers, footsteps passing in cycles, blessings whispered between stone and breath. Did the artists who painted these ceilings know their work would survive so long? Did they sense that each touch of pigment would become a bridge between worlds? It is said that pilgrims here sometimes glimpse visions, answers, sent through color and silence, as they stare upward to the vault. Outside, the morning grew brighter, but inside it remained twilight, sacred, protective, timeless. Each visit to Lalibela feels like the turning of a cycle, not just a journey into the past, but a crossing through the heart of faith. It is the interplay of shadow and pigment, the scent of morning mingling with the quiet joy of voices old and new, that gives the ceiling its power. I lingered beneath the indigo, tracing motifs with my eye, sensing they belonged to a larger story. As the air brightened and my lantern dimmed, I wondered what visions still lingered, what hopes and sorrows might be breathed into the stone. The ceiling remained as bold as the morning, its colors refusing to ebb. There is always more to discover, always the whisper that another chamber lies just ahead, perhaps decorated with golden stars, another vault waiting to reveal the map of destiny set long before we arrived. The air along the Nile carried the fragrance of wet reeds and distant citrus as I drifted toward Esna, drawn by stories of stars painted in gold. Markets faded behind me, swallowed in the gentle chaos of river life, until only the oar's quiet rhythm and soft lapping water remained. Sunlight played over the surface in shifting ribbons, hinting at mysteries just beneath the world's edge. The Temple of Esna stood apart from the bustling modern town, sunk low from centuries of silt and renewal. Stepping down ancient stairs, I felt the temperature drop, sound become muffled. In that stillness, anticipation bloomed, the sense that time here spun on a different axis, waiting for explorers who came with questions, not certainty. The sanctuary was cool and dim, columns soaring overhead like the trunks of a petrified forest. As my eyes adjusted, gold began to shimmer, caught high above where the ceiling unfurled like the night sky itself. The vault was a map of stars, a zodiac crawling with figures ancient and proud, their outlines painted in peacock blue and glowing gold leaf. Each stroke was deliberate, every constellation rendered with a devotion both familiar and breathtaking. For years, scholars believed the colors were too vivid, the gold too unblemished to be authentic. Tests, however, proved they were not the work of recent hands. The ceiling's pigment was a blend the ancients perfected, mixing malachite and lapis with crushed gemstones and oils, then sealing the gold into the plaster with alchemical care. The blue, deep as the Nile's moonlit skin, shimmered with the same intensity it carried 2,000 years ago. The gold traced the dance of Saturn, the curve of Leo, the path of the moon's journey, and more. It was as if the artisans had borrowed not only pigment but starlight itself. I stood beneath the zodiac, letting the patterns draw me in. Soft light filtered through high windows, illuminating different constellations as the day passed. The ceiling is not a simple chart. It is a living calendar, a sacred cipher mapping the soul's journey into eternity. Ancient priests would have entered here at night, raising lamps to make the gold glow, reading the future in careful script along pictorial timelines. Each sign marked the passage of time but also hinted at destinies more poetic than written in stone. I ran my gaze across the painted sky. Beyond the symbols of ram and bull, crocodile and scorpion, I noticed deeper details. The small notches indicating lunar cycles, the careful positioning of planets, the hidden script weaving spells between the stars. The ceiling is both map and riddle, inviting the eye to travel, but refusing to yield all its secrets. The air was heavy with incense residue, tinged by the memory of old rituals. Somewhere, a bird called, its cry echoing through the chamber. For a moment, I felt small, a witness, dwarfed by time, but still part of the story written here in color and light. The ceiling made me wonder if there are still truths waiting above us, ones we can glimpse only in moments of silence and awe. As I prepared to leave, golden flecks seemed to shimmer anew in the shifting light. There was always another sign to notice, another question hiding among the painted heavens. Esna's zodiac is more than beauty. It is a challenge, an invitation to join the conversation between sages and stars. Beyond these sacred walls, the journey continues toward rain-softened archways, where vermilion endures in the kingdom of Anuradhapura, and where each color, each symbol becomes another step along an endless celestial path. Dawn arrived on waves of mist, weaving between the ancient stupas and columns of Anuradhapura. Thin veils of light caressed ruined plinths, making quiet music of bird song and the gentle tinkle of distant temple bells. The sacred city still breathed with the pulse of old rituals, its forested groves echoing with prayers and whispers centuries old. I followed a path brushed by dew, my steps muffled, heart slowed to the rhythm of this silent kingdom. Ruins gave way to a solitary archway clothed in shadow. Inside, the world changed. I breathed in the perfume of rain-damp stone, of warm earth and the memory of burning sandalwood sticks. Here, light filtered in like water, gathering in pockets under painted vaults. The ceilings above pulsed with bands of vermilion and deep cobalt. Arcs stretched overhead like rainbows painted to outlast every monsoon. The vibrancy unsettled expectation. 1,000 years had passed, yet the colors flowed with the passion and urgency of their birth. Scholars have long debated the origin of these pigments. How could such brightness survive the pounding rains, the subtropical heat, the slow creep of lichen and moss? Local lore spoke in riddles. The paint's a royal secret, their formula guarded by priest and king, binding the fate of city to color. Perhaps the magic lay in the careful blend of iron oxide and the oils of rare forest seeds, or perhaps it was devotion, layered in every stroke by hands certain of their mission. Moving slowly beneath the painted archways, I traced the patterns with my gaze. Curling vines, bold lotus blooms, celestial chariots racing eternity in calculated arcs. Colors here are not simply decoration. They are script, the language of poems and protection. Each vermilion sweep shields the worshipper, each cobalt twist guiding souls through uncertainty. Even as stone crumbles and roots pry foundations loose, the ceiling's color rises undaunted into the light. Standing in this sanctuary, I felt the company of countless others. Footsteps whispered against the polished floor, chants floated upward, reverence stitched into every syllable. I imagined an artist, hunched beneath scaffolding, candle smoke drifting as they pressed brush to stone, pausing between prayers to ensure the line held true. The pigment was grounded not just with minerals, but with hope, with the stubborn hearts of those watching their kingdom rise and fall and rise again. The patterns above me formed maps and keys, some obvious, some slyly hidden. Did these vaults offer safe passage for the soul, or were they charms sculpted to keep chaos at bay? Perhaps they were both. Talisman and invitation, warning and embrace. I wondered if anyone ever deciphered the full story threaded through the color, or whether each pilgrim departed holding only a scrap of the full narrative. Sunlight poured through a high window, igniting a pillar into vivid flame. The vermilion shimmered and almost seemed to pulse, as if stirred awake by my presence. These colors, older than my own ancestors' memory, felt like a challenge, proof that beauty can survive anything if shielded by purpose. And so, the kingdom's faded glory glowed brilliantly, refusing to fade before the world's forgetting. As the morning deepened, I lingered in the hush, letting my consciousness settle among light, pigment, and stone. I wondered what other treasures might lay hidden where geometry and nature collaborate, perhaps in a distant city swallowed by jungle, where geometry transforms into pearlescent visions and ceilings catch the first blush of new day. Each vault opens onto another mystery, and in the hues of a Nuridapura, the story is only just beginning. Daybreak in Tikal arrives not with sudden brilliance, but as a slow unveiling, the darkness peeling back in ribbons, the symphony of the rainforest swelling beneath a milky sky. I moved quietly through mossy passages, my footsteps dissolving into the calls of howler monkeys and the soft patter of dew on leaf and stone. Vines hung in thick curtains, and the world felt secret, alive with the pulse of ancient memory. At the heart of the ruins, the stone corridors narrowed. The air grew heavier and cooler, scented with cedar sap and the sweet breath of orchids growing in shadowed crevices. Here, I found a chamber unlike any I had ever seen. Morning sunlight filtered through dense canopy above, painted the walls in dapples of pale green and gold. When I stepped across the threshold, time seemed to pause. I raised my lantern overhead, and the ceiling revealed its true treasure. There, set into smooth lime plaster, pearlescent chips glinted in sacred geometry, circles, triangles, sigils repeating in hypnotic pattern. The shells, harvested from far rivers and ancient seabeds, shimmered with iridescence that survived centuries of jungle humidity and battering storms. These were not mere ornaments. Their placement echoed cosmological diagrams, maps that guided the movements of priests and pilgrims through ritual and rite. It is said that when the first explorers uncovered this vault, they were convinced the light was a trick of the eye, a modern addition. Scientists scrutinized the material, searching for resin or synthetic adhesive to explain the lingering gloss, but found instead only the handiwork of ancient Maya artisans, their technique guided by knowledge as mysterious as their language. The pearl fragments, bonded with lime and honey, held the memory of both ocean and forest, binding sky and earth above every worshiper who knelt below. I moved through a pool of soft radiance, gaze traveling along the mosaic lines as they curled into labyrinthine patterns overhead. The ceiling seemed to catch the light, holding it gently, then scattering it, pearl geometry reflecting and refracting, casting shifting designs across the flagstone floor. The effect was mesmerizing. Every shift of the sun overhead renewed the ceiling, fresh reflections swimming across the chamber like the play of moonlight on water. There was power in this design, a deliberate harnessing of nature's own invention. The placement of every fragment, the precise arrangement of color and gleam, spoke of mathematics rooted in cycles, the turning of seasons, the rising of Venus, the calibration of sacred calendar. I imagined the ancient builders setting each delicate shell, reading the future as they wrote the past in pearl and stone. Among the patterns, I detected faint traces of red ochre and green malachite. Pigments added in tiny strokes to highlight major points within the geometry. It was an art that transcended visibility, asking the visitor to slow, to adapt their eyes, to surrender to subtleties lost in the noise of sunlit courtyards. In that hush, I felt the echo not just of old voices, but of the measured passing of sun and moon, clouds tangling and untangling outside. As the morning climbed and the rays grew sharper, the pearls blazed for a final moment, then softened to a mute silver. It struck me that this vault was a promise. Its beauty, grown brighter in rain and shadow, would last so long as there were eyes open to witness it. I left the chamber quietly, the geometry of light still imprinted on my vision, and wondered what mysteries awaited in the next silent hall, perhaps a vault washed in cinnabar, where the sea's red memory lingers behind Malta's ancient stones, bidding explorers to come closer and see what only patience will reveal. The wind that carries salt from the Mediterranean rolled gently over Malta at sunrise, whispering in the cyclopean stones of Tarxian. Light gathered where carved pillars met wild grass, brushing the megaliths with a pale pink glow. The land felt restless beneath my boots, the air stitched with bird calls and the faint echo of distant waves flowing over rock. I moved quietly through the temple's entrance, tracing the rough passage with fingers and hope. Inside, the world contracts to silence. Stone chambers, shaped with human hands some 5,000 years ago, shelter memories too quiet for speech. The space is cool, the ceiling low, dust swirling in the golden haze. I gazed upward, lantern trembling in my grip, and found the vault's true marvel, a sky of cinnabar and ochre, its color as fresh as the morning itself. There are legends in Malta that say the crimson paint appeared overnight, bright as blood and impossible to wash away. Locals insist that no storm or sun has ever dulled the pigment. Its hue so extraordinary that visiting scientists once accused the walls of harboring trickery, but analysis delivered only more riddles. The red was born from native minerals blended with oils and the thinnest strands of honey. Its chemistry matches the earth, yet somehow it is more than the sum of its ingredients. The chamber's air is thick, breathing with the mingled scent of limestone, wildflowers, and sea spray. As my eyes adjusted to the dim, the ceiling seemed almost to pulse. Patterns hinted at celestial maps, with crimson rivers winding between islands of ochre, their placement echoing the shapes of constellations glimpsed from the temple's stone threshold long ago. There is purpose in the brushwork, a respect for cycles, for a world ruled by the stars overhead and the ocean below. I imagined the ancient artisans, their world a tapestry of ritual and stone, their hands skilled in alchemy and prayer. Did they paint these ceilings in service of the departed or as messages for the living? Was this color meant as shield or invitation, to guide or to keep away? The silence offered no answers, only the suggestion that every question was already written in pigment. It is said the temple's paint never truly dried. In the hours before sunset, the red glimmers with new intensity, drawing out hidden symbols only visible to eyes attuned to dusk. Standing beneath that ever-shifting vault, I felt the weight of impossibility, a color that should not exist outside of legend, a story that insists on being retold. The effect is not simply visual, it is emotional, an awakening, a gentle nudge to remember the connection between earth and sky, past and present. Movement through the passage brings new details into view. Circles and spirals swirl across the ceiling. Patterns echoed in clay statuettes and carved stones scattered throughout the temple. The crimson pigment seems to invite contemplation, its mystery deepening with every glance. Was it a map for travelers, a message in the language of light, water, and memory? As dusk approached, the temple felt alive, the cinnabar ceiling glowing softly, drawing the last warmth from the day. I lingered under its spell, the salt wind rising and falling, wondering if each vibration was a whisper from the people who built this sanctuary. Did they know their ceiling would endure, its brilliance refusing to surrender, its riddles forever out of reach? As I turned to leave, the colors shifted one last time, hinting at stories left untold. I crossed into night, the temple behind me shining under a sky that held its own secrets. The journey had revealed 100 marvels, but there are always new vaults to discover, new pigments to puzzle over. The expedition is far from finished, and somewhere in the darkness, history waits with its next question, ready for explorers willing to listen, wonder, and follow its luminous path. There are moments after the torch has been snuffed and the echoes of your last footstep fade, when the passages of stone and color seem to breathe around you. The dust settling in the beam of a lantern, the lingering scent of oil and earth, all draw your senses into a world where time turns slowly and history whispers in painted light. Beneath these ancient ceilings, each breath is a step across centuries. Each pigment holds a heartbeat, a prayer sent swirling through vaults where kings once knelt and prophets once dreamed. To wander through these temples is to step into the current of a river with many sources. In Egypt, in Peru, deep within the volcanic cliffs of Ajanta or the rain-damp chambers of Tikal, I found that every ceiling is an act of rebellion against forgetting. The colors, so bright that they trouble our sense of what is possible, are not just remnants of lost techniques. They are luminous testaments to longing and hope, to old faiths in the endurance of beauty. The artists who crushed ochre, who polished pearl, who found light in earth and resin, left behind more than decoration. They left open invitations, reminding us that the pursuit of meaning never truly ends. Some mysteries here will remain just that, questions wrapped in the silence of stone and the shimmer of impossible hues. Yet, within those questions, there is companionship. The journey through these vaults is not a solitary one. In every shadowed archway and kaleidoscopic mosaic, countless explorers, worshippers, artists, and dreamers have paused just as you do now, entranced by the conversation between darkness and light. From the citrine glow of Abydos to the cinnabar sky of Tarxian, every ceiling shapes its own horizon, a reminder that even the oldest stories carry the seeds of the future. The pigments may one day fade, the stones may one day crumble, but the urge to create, to wonder, to reach, remains. In the quiet after the journey, as the last rays slip across painted stone, I am left with certainty about only one thing. History does not whisper, it waits, patient as starlight, ready for the next hand, the next heart, to claim its echoes above.